Hello and welcome to the Writer Song podcast. My name is Matt and I'm the creator of the Writer Song YouTube channel. This podcast is a conversation between me and you, so if you have any questions, comments or suggestions, then feel free to leave them here on Substack, which you can access at writersongpodcast.com or on the YouTube community tab. I love hearing from you and you can shape future episodes of the podcast, so get in touch today. This week I want to ask the question, what is a riff? We've all heard of a riff. You may be familiar with them from playing guitar or from listening to your favourite music. But what actually is a riff? And how can you write a riff? Let's start with a definition. A riff is a repeated chord progression or refrain in music, also known as an ostinato figure in classical music. It is a pattern or melody, often played by the rhythm section's instrument or solo instrument, that forms the basis or accompaniment of a musical composition. Though riffs are most often found in rock music, heavy metal music, Latin, funk and jazz, classical music is also sometimes based on the riff, such as Ravel's Bolero. Riffs can be as simple as a tenor saxophone honking a simple, catchy rhythmic figure, or as complex as the riff-based variations in the head arrangements played by the Count Basie Orchestra. David Brackett defines riffs as short melodic phrases, while Richard Middleton defines them as short rhythmic, melodic or harmonic figures repeated to form a structural framework. Ricky Rooksby states, a riff is a short, repeated, memorable musical phrase, often pitched low on the guitar, which focuses much of the energy and excitement of a rock song. So you can see that riffs can take several forms, but at their basis is two things, I would argue: repetition and rhythmic interest. So now that we know what a riff is, let's discuss some of the ways that you could write a riff. You can start with a melody or chord progression. This will give you a foundation to work with and help you to develop a riff that is both catchy and memorable. This also means that the riff will be coherent with the rest of your song, as it can match and work with the melody and chord progression. The chord progression can give you clues to which notes to play on your riff. As the notes in the underlying chord change, you could work with changing notes in your riff to accompany this. With a melody, you could also follow the notes or also incorporate some of the rhythmic ideas from your melody into your riff, so the two work together as a whole. One of the most important things with riffs is to keep them simple. Riffs are often short and repetitive. You'll often see riffs are between 1 and 4 bars in length. Any more than that and they can start to stray into the territory of a melody or a chord progression. And by keeping things short and repetitive and simple, then it makes them easy to play and more memorable to the listener. So use a limited number of notes and rhythms and avoid overcomplicating things. Do you want some help writing an entire song, not just the riff? Check out my course, How to Write Your First Song in 1 Hour, and learn how to write all parts of a song, as well as a riff. Go to onehoursong.com to learn more. You can also use repetition in your riff to create a sense of groove. Repetition is key to creating a catchy riff. Repeat the same notes or rhythms over and over again with slight variations to keep things interesting. Repetition is also important to make things memorable. The more something is repeated, the more people will remember it. So much of popular music is built on repetition, whether that's in the chord progressions or the melody and also the riff. So don't be afraid to repeat your riff over and over and over again. You can also use dynamics to add interest to your riffs. Dynamics are the changes in volume and intensity of a sound. Use dynamics to add interest to your riff by playing some notes louder than others, or by gradually increasing or decreasing the volume. This is one thing that you can change on repeat of your riff. Maybe it starts off quietly and then builds in intensity and volume. Maybe one version of the riff is played with a clean or less muddy sound, and then later repetitions add distortion or other effects on the signal, whether that's on guitar or on any other instrument. You can also use syncopation to surprise the listener. Syncopation is the playing of notes or rhythms off the beat. Use syncopation to surprise the listener and to create a sense of excitement and anticipation. So typically popular music is in 4/4 time signatures. Not always, but most of the time. And that means that in each bar you have 4 beats. Typically beats 1 and 3 are the strongest beats, with beats 2 and 4 being weaker. So beats 2 and 4 would be considered off beats. If you put the notes of your rhythm on these off beats, then they stand out more. And if you put the notes of your riff between the beats, that means they are completely off the beat and they are syncopated. And if you look at a lot of really popular riffs, you'll see that so many of the key and interesting parts of the riff are using a syncopated rhythm. So that's a really important part of the riff writing process. If you're playing on guitar, you can also use a variety of techniques to make your riff interesting. Some common techniques include hammer-ons and pull-offs. These are techniques that allow you to play 2 notes in quick succession without picking the strings. This can allow you to quickly create syncopated feelings in your riff. Bending. This is a technique that involves bending a note up or down in pitch. Slides. This is a technique that involves sliding from one note to another. And vibrato. This is a technique that involves adding vibrato to a note. All of this is to create interest in your riff. You can also feel free to experiment and have fun with your riff writing. The most important thing is to experiment and have fun. Don't be afraid to break the rules and try new things. When it comes to riff writing, I wouldn't worry so much about whether you're in a particular key or not. The short nature of a riff won't usually undermine the tonal centre of your songs, and it allows you to be a bit more free and to experiment a bit more with your riff writing process. Particularly if the rest of your song is very diatonic, that means using notes from the scale that the key is made from. Having a riff that doesn't really adhere so much to the rules can really help it to stand out and elevate your song above so many others. Another great tip for riff writing is to listen to a lot of music. You can hear interesting melodic, rhythmic ideas for your riffs in all sorts of music, not just your favourite songs and genres of music you associate with riffs like heavy metal and rock music, but reach out to classical or other types of music and see where the riffs play a role there. If you compose dance music or any other electronic music, maybe just using a digital audio workstation on your computer, then incorporating riffs is really important because some of those styles of music are built entirely on repetition of simple short phrases. So be on the lookout for interesting ideas to use in your riffs. And finally, I'd say don't be afraid to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, so don't be afraid to experiment and make mistakes. The most important thing is to keep practicing and never give up. And when I say mistakes, there aren't really any mistakes in music, because if someone enjoys your music, then it's not a mistake. It's a great piece of art. But I think just don't be afraid that you're going to create something that sounds bad to you, because all songwriters go through a process of creating bad songs or songs they're not happy with. And this is just as true with riff writing as any other part of the songwriting process. So have a go at experimenting with riffs, and because they're so short, you can write loads of them really quite quickly and keep the ones you like and dismiss the ones you don't like. And that's how you get better at songwriting. Okay, that's it for this week. I hope that's been interesting and maybe helpful to you. Let me know how you get on with your riff writing this week. As ever, if you've got any questions, comments or suggestions, then feel free to get in touch. You can leave them here on Substack at writeasongpodcast.com or on the YouTube community tab. For now, I'll see you next time. All the best.